Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is the Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 meeting of the Transportation and Parking Commission. My name is Donna Lascalia. I'm the chair of the commission. And Beth, if you are ready, please call the roll.
DPW Director Donna Lascalia,
Here.
Police Chief John Cartledge,
Here.
Planning and Sustainability Director Carolyn Mish,
Here.
Parking Administration Enforcement and Administrator Nancy Forrestal,
Here.
Counselor Alex Jarrett,
Here.
Counselor Deborah Clemmer,
Here.
Deb and Bruce,
Here.
Diana Day Foskett,
Here.
Jamie Albro Fisher,
Here.
and Randy Saylor.
Here.
You have 10 present.
Okay, thank you, Beth. And I'll also announce that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. So first up is public comment. You're welcome to address the commission on any matter that you would like. If you are here for an agenda item, I just ask that you hold your comments until that agenda item. It just makes for a more orderly meeting. But if there's anyone here to speak to something that is not on the agenda, now's your time to do so if you choose. I just need your name and city, town, or residence and ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes for us. Is there anybody here for a public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Item 3, which is approval of minutes from the prior meeting. The minutes are not prepared. So we're going to have to defer this to the next meeting. I would like to just ask procedurally for the counselors who are here, do we need to continue this, or is there a formal action I need to take for the minutes? Can we just agree that they're not prepared and we need to wait until next month?
You can just bump it to the next agenda.
All right, so that is what we will do then. So no minutes today, and we will approve the minutes next month. Okay, next up is reports from departments and subcommittees. I have a few updates from the DPW. So the bikeway resurfacing project, that project is substantially complete, and we are working on punch list items in the upcoming weeks. You may have noticed some work in the King Street corridor on the traffic signal poles. If folks remember, that paint had actually delaminated off the poles that were installed as part of a Mass DOT TIP project. So DOT has brought back a company named Polar Vortex to paint the signal poles at Finn and King Street, Finn and State Street, and King North and Summer Street. So police detail is assisting with traffic control, and any questions on that can go to DOT District 2. DPW has put out contracts for our signal maintenance and emergency repairs, pothole repairs, because we're having some staffing difficulties. And we also have our mill and overlay project that is out to bid. I'll be doing a more formal communication through the mayor's office on the status of our sidewalk work, on our mill and overlay projects, and paving in general, because we have a lot of work scheduled for this summer. So the mayor's office will be putting out a communication around that, a more formal communication by the end of the month. Does anybody else have any updates for us?
I just have a one quick update. I sent a notice out to our bike head committee, but there's actually going to be a bike counter that's going to be installed on the section of shared use path behind Stop and Shop. So if anybody sees either people out there putting something across the bike path, they are legitimate. They're putting a counter. It'll be there for a good year or so, I think, collecting data on usage there. So just as an FYI, there'll be a little box that'll be chained to a post and then tape on the bike path.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. Anyone else have any updates for us? All right, and I just want to backtrack very quickly. I asked for public comment. Joe, I'm sorry, I don't believe I saw your hand, but I'm gonna unmute you. I just need your name and city or town of residence, please. So go ahead. Joe, I just need you to unmute. Just click the button. There you go. Yep, go
Sorry
ahead.
about that. Yeah, my name is Joe Capinos. I live Randolph Place here in Northampton. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I did just want to make a note in terms of some issues that we're having. I know you guys are talking about potholes, which is something that I won't delve into too much because that is certainly one of the bigger issues that I have in terms of this street that I live on. And unfortunately, right outside the center of town, this is one of the, in my opinion, one of the busier public streets because we don't charge for parking. There's no meters here, so it is a frequently used street. And I think that becomes problematic, particularly as we get closer. I know we're in the middle of summer, but as we get into winter, and I don't know particularly what the town does in terms of allowance for people to park during storms. One of the issues that we have here on the street is that people tend to have their cars here before plowing has been completed. And unfortunately, what that sort of does is that it limits what the plows have the option of doing, and then makes this already very challenging street much more difficult to navigate as we end up losing a lot of the street to just snow that hasn't been able to be removed. And I'm wondering, just because we have a lot of seniors that also live on our street, I know that I've had some discussions with them about their concerns with navigating the road in general, whether they're walking or driving their cars. I don't know what the city has in place for, parking for its residents in terms of, what to do during storms. I don't know if the garage, the parking garage that we have over closer towards the center is, open and available to people to leave their cars for extended periods of time, because again, what ends up happening is that people will have their cars here. They don't get moved, they don't get towed, and I don't necessarily want to see people get towed. Like I'm not, some person who's kind of shaking their fist, at the cars that are on my street from my window. But I think we run into a lot of issues that sort of make this street relatively unusable and pretty difficult to traverse during certain times of the year. And I'm hopeful that either the city will allow individuals to either maybe park in the garage. And I don't know if it's an option that can be for free for some individuals. I don't know if that's part of the issue, is that people don't have the ability to pay for extended parking during some of that time. And they just find that Randolph is a free street to go on, and then the people who are living here end up sort of again traversing some more difficult roads and having difficulty parking for the rest of essentially the winter time. So I had spoken to somebody about the state of our street in terms of the public works department. I haven't seen much movement on that, but I did also at least want to raise concerns when it comes to parking on our street, especially as we get closer towards winter months, in terms of hopefully having some level of availability for people to not have to be here on this street, so that we can actually get it appropriately cleaned for the residents who are living here. So.
All right, thanks for those comments, Joe. Maggie, would you mind putting our email address in the chat? Joe, if you could, we don't respond directly to these comments during public comment.
Sure.
If you could please just send a brief email to the email address that's going to be placed in the chat, and I will actually be able to respond to a lot of your questions and just shed a little light on your concerns. Okay, so
Perfect.
thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
Yep,
Thank you very
that
much.
email address will be in the chat shortly.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure there's nobody else for public comment that I may have missed. Okay, so we will move to matters before the commission now. First up is a discussion of a traffic calming request for Day Avenue. So the resident concerns that were submitted to us, a summary includes speeding, heavy traffic, instances of parked cars being struck, pets being hit, speed limit too high, poor sight lines. and just general congestion. So I'm going to ask the chief to talk about the data that he has collected, and then I'll have a few notes.
Thanks, Donna. So first I'll start with the collision data. 5-year collision analysis was conducted from 2021 through 2024. There was 9 collisions reported in this time frame. 3 in 2021, 3 in 2022, 2 in 2023, and 1 in 2024. I'll highlight some of the ones for everyone here. One was leaving the scene property damage. Another one was a 2-vehicle collision where a vehicle was struck as the operator didn't see the other vehicle because the sun was in their eyes. Another one, a vehicle was pulling back into traffic and struck an SUV which was passing the area. One vehicle is traveling southbound on Day Avenue, attempted to travel around a legally parked vehicle on the right side of the roadway. It traveled into oncoming traffic and the vehicles collided. Another one, tractor trailer unit struck a light post and continued towards Industrial Drive. One vehicle was traveling southbound on Day Avenue. The other one was traveling northbound. The vehicles sideswiped each other. They sideswiped each other while passing on Day Avenue. Another one was a rear end collision. We had another hit and run where driver's side mirror was struck by an unknown vehicle. And then one of the other ones was that the vehicle was traveling on Day Avenue. The sun was in their eyes and struck a vehicle on the side of the roadway. Donna, did you want me to go into the speed data as well right now?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I think the speed data is relevant, and then maybe talk a little bit about the number of cars that were counted too.
Yep. So a covert speed data collection was conducted from June 27th, 2024 to July 5th, 2024. During that time, 11,062 vehicles were measured. Day Avenue's a posted 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. The 85th percentile speed was 29 miles per hour. The 85th percentile speed is a widely used traffic statistical measure of the speed at or below which 85% of the drivers travel on that portion of the roadway. And just to get into a little more of the vehicle data. So I'll just go into the speed limits, the different sections of the speed limit. So during that time, there were 591 vehicles out of the whole total that were traveling less than 15 miles per hour. Between 15 and 20 miles per hour, there was 1,355 vehicles. Between 20 and 25 miles an hour, there was 3,374, which is 30.5% of the vehicles traveling at that speed out of the total number. Between 25 and 30 miles an hour, there was 3,655 vehicles, which is 33% of the total number of vehicles. And between 30 and 35 miles an hour, there was 1,279 vehicles, which is 11.5% of the total number. Between 35 and 40 miles an hour, there was 200 vehicles, which is 1.8% of the total number. And then from 40 to 45 miles per hour is there was 35 vehicles, and that's 0.3% of the total number. Those are the the most justified numbers here. And I also do have the total number of vehicles on per day of the week, which I don't know if that's helpful or not, but so on Sunday for this time period, there was 935 vehicles that traveled down Day Avenue. On Monday, there was 1,901. Tuesday, there was 1,891. Wednesday, there was 1,952. Thursday, 571. Friday, 2,167, and Saturday, 1,080 vehicles. That's essentially what I have right now.
Thanks, Chief. And I just
Welcome.
have a couple of other notes. So Day Avenue is about 900 feet long and 24 feet wide. There is a sidewalk on the northeast side for its entire length. Parking is prohibited on that side from Bridge Street to North Street, and also on the southwest side from Bridge Street for about 100 feet. And the official speed regulation is 30 miles an hour. So that's the data that was collected on Day Avenue. I'll also mention that there is a heavy commercial truck restriction on the road. So not uncommon in this part of Ward 3. So that's kind of the data that has been collected. I'll ask first, and I'll get to public comment in a moment. I just want to know if there's any members of the commission who have any comment for us or have any questions or need any clarification on the data that we have collected. Okay, hearing now, Councilor Clemmer, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't find my little hand. Yeah, just from reading over the reports also, it seemed like there were a lot of accidents, people hitting the parked cars' mirrors and accidents like that were never reported. And then, the animals too. So, that also, we don't know about how many of those kind of accidents there were added to whatever we have information.
Yep, thanks, Council. And I will mention, it's a narrow street. So it's unsurprising that there's been sort of near misses or cars getting clipped. And there's obviously a good volume of traffic. Any other comments from anyone on the commission? Okay, so I'm going to open this up for public comment. So I just need your name and city, town of residence. And we do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes if you would. Happy to take questions or anything that needs to be clarified, and we'll sort of gather all that information and then we can respond at the end of everyone's comments. So Nancy, you're up first and I will unmute you. Go right ahead.
Okay. Oh, I just lost everything.
That's okay. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Got two screens up. Thank you. My name is Nancy Mahevic. I live at 51 Day Avenue, and I'm the person who conducted the survey, the report of which some of you at least received earlier today. I respectfully request that I be given 4 minutes of time so that I can go through the results of the study that we did so that you can understand them. I won't have to speak quite so quickly. We already have seen that a significant number of vehicles travel above the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's over 200 a day that are at or above the speed limit, and about 30 a day are going 35 miles an hour or higher, which on a very narrow street with a lot of parked cars is potentially very dangerous. The situation is exacerbated by the narrowness of the street and the number of cars that are parked on the street. One of our requests in the proposal that we submitted was to reduce the speed limit to 25. However, I think we feel that would actually have minimal impact. The speed limit is currently 30, and we see that a lot of people ignore it. Reducing it to 25 probably won't stop the people who are going 40. Installing several speed bumps or tables, we think, would likely succeed in reducing speed and would be beneficial. However, it's unlikely that that would prevent impatient drivers from passing parked cars when there's oncoming traffic. And that's the situation that causes a lot of the accidents that we found. And you know that I conducted a survey of residents of Day Avenue, and the results of that survey showed that 4 households reported 12 incidents of their cars being struck while parked on Day Avenue. It ranged from 2 households saying that their cars were struck once to one person whose car was struck 9 times. That's quite a few times. Because there's a lot of turnover on Day Avenue, we also asked residents to indicate if they recalled prior residents whose cars were hit. And after I removed duplicates, because a number of people mentioned someone more than once, we ended up with a total of 4 additional households reporting accidents, and that was 10 incidents. So total, we had 8 households reported their vehicles being struck while parked on Day Avenue, and that accounted for 22 incidents total. I'm sure there were more because some people didn't respond, but I think that's a relatively decent estimate. Damage ranged from under $100 to one car being totaled while they were parked and hit by an oncoming car, or car that was probably passing. Speed bumps would, help to reduce part of that problem, but a much larger problem is the narrowness of the street. And the situation is going to be significantly worsened by the development at 39 Day Avenue. When that development is completed, we'll go from 1 housing unit to 9 housing units. There's only room for 9 cars to be parked within the development. The average number of cars per household for apartments tends to be 1.4, I believe it is, which means we're going to have additional cars parked on Day Avenue just from residents, in addition to any guests that they have. Now, the impact of this is going to be substantial because it's going to decrease the space that's currently available to cars that are going toward Bridge Street to pull over behind parked cars and let the oncoming traffic come through. So you're going to have much less space for people to pull over, which means that those cars will try to go, past the parked car and oncoming traffic, and we're going to, we think, significantly increase the number of parked cars that are going to be hit. And the person who's had his vehicle hit 9 times, I'm sure is not excited to hear that. So we think that installing speed bumps or speed humps or speed tables would be beneficial. It would reduce speed, but the narrowness of the street would not be addressed by that.
Thanks, Nancy. I gotta ask you to stop there if you would, please.
Can I make one more comment?
That's 4 minutes. Okay. So
We asked that it be made a one-way street.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your report and for those comments.
Mhm.
Okay, next is Katie. Go ahead, Katie.
Hi, my name is Katie Wright. I also live on Day Avenue. I want to thank Nancy for all the hard work she's done on this. It's been no secret for anybody living on the street for years, which I've lived there for 5 years now myself. It's terrifying. I mean, just the human and the emotional element. You hear the numbers, and it's not the same as when you live there every day. Like I've personally witnessed just standing outside or getting in and out of my own car. I personally witnessed 2 of the collisions that Chief Cartilage described here, and it's terrifying to live this way. It's terrifying to see my neighbor's pets killed. It's terrifying to, I don't know. It's really it's a very scary experience to live on Day Avenue. I'm not somebody who's fussy about these kinds of things in my character, but I've never experienced anything like this anywhere else I've lived in my life. Um, it's been a consideration in moving even. It's that disruptive to our quality of life here. Um, I would be happy to yield any additional time I have to Nancy because she's really the expert on this. She's done so much hard work to try to evidence, how bad this really has been. Is that permissible?
I want to just continue to take comments from anyone from the public here and then kind of open it back up for a conversation with the commission. So, you know, you're welcome to, use up the remainder of your time or, you know, we'll keep moving here.
Oh, sure. I'm not sure that I have much more to add. I mean, it's a little frustrating to see this data because again, I don't feel like it necessarily reflects what it feels like on a day-to-day basis. If you hear, you know, we looked in this 1 week and there were only so many cars going over 35, 40 miles per hour. But I'm the one standing there seeing it happening over and over, day after day. And it's genuinely, it's terrifying. It really is. Like I hate to sound dramatic, but I just don't understand how it's been left to go on like this for so long. And I guess that's all I've got to contribute.
Thanks for your comments, Katie. Appreciate it. All right, just want to see if there's anybody else from the public who has any comments for us about Day Avenue. I see Erin might be raising her actual hand. So, okay, Erin, we're gonna unmute you. Just need your name and city or town of residence, please. Go ahead, Erin.
Can you hear me? Yeah, there I
Yeah,
am.
there we go. Go ahead.
My name is Aaron Irvin. I live on Glenwood Avenue, which is directly parallel to Day Avenue, at the end where the connecting driveway for the 39 Day Avenue new development is. And it still looks like a construction zone, and we have already seen cars cutting through from the end of Glenwood Avenue through the new development and coming out onto Day Avenue. Guaranteed there's going to be more people doing that when it's paved. And it's only going to add to everything. And the other thing I've noticed, and I'll add, is that since there's now a driveway at the end of Glenwood Avenue instead of it being a dead-end street, the cars that come down there and have always turned around in my driveway now are coming down faster because they see that they can go through, and then they get down there and they realize they can't. So it's a problem on Day Avenue that's going to be exacerbated and is spreading through the neighborhood. And that's what I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Erin. Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay, I have a couple of comments that might be helpful. So the first is about a one-way street. So anytime if we were to look at making any street in the city one way, we would actually have to do an analysis of the network surrounding the street because creating a one-way street in one place actually pushes traffic to other locations. So it's not just a street by street analysis, it's actually a network analysis to see where that's going to push the traffic, how it's going to impact other places, and maybe have unintended consequences. So that's sort of an engineering analysis that turns into a larger network study that has a fairly significant price tag associated with it. And that can often be you know, 50, 60, 70, $80,000, depending on how big of an area and how much of a network analysis is required. So that's the first thing. It wouldn't just be like, okay, we think this needs to be a one way and let's do it. The second thing is a lot of people ask for speed humps or speed tables. Speed tables are a little bit less aggressive than speed humps, but both have a vertical deflection to the roadway and are really shown, the data shows that speed humps can slow travel speeds between 3 and 4 miles an hour. Speed humps tend to be very controversial. Speed tables, speed humps tend to be very controversial. A lot of people like the idea of them. They just don't want them near their homes because they tend to be noisy. So any truck or a large vehicle or something towing a trailer or anything with loose cargo, there definitely is noise associated with speed humps and speed tables. They can also be disruptive for emergency response for the fire department and for the police department, who will have to traverse them, but it slows them down the same way it slows anybody else down. Just a couple of other comments about traffic calming. We often talk about the width of streets as a tool to create sort of narrower sight lines, which in turn forces drivers to drive slower. The width of Day Avenue is sort of in and of itself a traffic calming measure. You know, if the street was 40 feet wide, people would feel like they could go even faster than they're currently going. One of the problems on Day Avenue, from my standpoint, is that it's a narrow street and then there's parking on the street. So that creates this sort of tunnel effect, and people continue to move very quickly through that tunnel, which is why, you know, there's near misses or non-misses, people's mirrors getting clipped and cars getting clipped. So one of the things that the commission could entertain, in my opinion, in this area is a sort of chicane solution where we move parking around, where we put parking on, you know, one side of the street for a stretch and then parking on the other side of the street for a stretch. And that actually forces drivers to kind of think about their route, and instead of creating a straight path, you know, kind of makes drivers move the car a little bit more to the left and a little bit more to the right, and potentially slow them down. We have done that in other locations in the city. Day Avenue is a short street, so that might not be the most effective thing in this area. But that's just a little bit of information to help the commission maybe inform what we may think about in this location. I don't know if any other members of the commission have any comments based on the public comment we've heard, or based on my comments or the chief's data. Carolyn, go ahead.
Yeah, really just sort of to, I guess, reinforce what you're talking about in terms of the street width, and you know, beyond the study needed for one-way, you know, one-way streets often result in faster traffic because you don't have that potential oncoming traffic as sort of a natural slowing effect. So I think that it might, something like that could have the unintended and opposite consequence of what's needed. But I think the yeah, I like the suggestion about the creating that chicane effect with opposite side parking.
Thanks, Carolyn. Go ahead, Randy.
I was wondering, I heard also about the Glenwood Avenue to Day Avenue connection. Is that a temporary situation, or I gather it had to do with construction happening down at that end? I just am curious if that's something we need to attend to as well, or if that's a construction issue that whoever the contractor is needs to deal with.
I can answer that question. It's not, it's the layout. I mean, there's right now it's sort of hard to understand how the traffic's going to flow, but it is part of the proposal. It's a one-way, instead of having a driveway with two-way traffic, there's a one-way sort of loop through the property.
And that comes out back on Day Avenue, or comes in back right at the end there?
Not at the end, in the middle.
In the middle, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other members of the commission have any comments for this? Sorry for the noise in the background, if anyone can hear it. The guys are working right outside my office window here, and it's a little loud for me. Hopefully it's not loud for you.
Donna, this is Devin.
Yeah, go ahead, Devin.
I can't hear your noise for just.
Well, that's good. Well, that's good, because I sure can't.
You know, I've been on this commission for a long time, and we certainly have visited Day Avenue over and over again. When the big trucks were cutting through, I'm wondering if that has somehow taken care of itself with enough energy on your part and many others to try to stop that. But I can remember one of the serious complaints from residents years ago when the trucks were coming through was how it just rattled the houses. And so I think that would have to come to play if we thought about doing speed bumps or speed humps, either one. I think that it's, the houses are close to the road there, and I think that that would be, as Carolyn was saying, an unintended consequence.
Councilor Clemmer, go ahead.
Just a question about the chicane, using that to slow things down. Since it's a short street, how many switchbacks would there be for the parking? Going from one side to the other, would it just be like half a street or a third, back and forth?
I think we did this down in Councilor Moulton's ward. I think it was Stoddard Street, if I remember correctly, but I could be misspeaking, so don't quote me on that. Which is also a fairly short street. So I think a typical parking space is 20 feet. So we would have to kind of we'd have to kind of go look at the street and lay it out and see what we could accomplish. But at 900 feet long and a typical parking space at 20 feet, you can sort of mathematically back into a number from that.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds like the quickest and least expensive fix or thing we could try for now, at least. So sounds like that's a good option.
Yeah, thanks. And then just to Devin's comment, I think the trucks were a bigger problem when Coca-Cola was fully operating. I mean, Coca-Cola is down to 25% of its previous bottling capacity and production at this point. So I don't want to go so far as to say this is not an issue anymore, but it's certainly nothing like it was 5 or 6 years ago when Coke was actually in full production. Nancy, go ahead. No, I'm sorry, Nancy, that's Nancy Forrestal from the city.
The new housing that's on Day Avenue, is the parking for that on street or off street?
It's off street. They have all
Off-street.
off-street parking. Yep.
All right, so it's not like we can use those cars to help to create these parking areas that you're talking about up and down the street.
Right.
I'm just wondering.
I mean, they're, just like in every, even along Day Avenue, existing Day Avenue, with the people who come to visit, if they park in the street, then that would become that, part of that on-street parking. But
So how many units are there?
I think 7.
7, and how many parking spaces are available off?
I would have to look at the plans. I don't have them in front of me.
All
But
right.
I mean, I don't think, the reality is that, I mean, those could be, so anybody coming for that certainly could add to the on-street parking to help that, traffic calming. But I don't know that it would be, I don't know how regular that would be. I mean, just like any other property on Day Avenue, it's probably will fluctuate.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Moulton, I'd like to recognize you and say good afternoon. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Director Liscal. Yeah, I figured since I'm listening to this meeting, I will confirm what you just said about the chicane solution on, it was Stoddard Street. It was within the last year. It was in response to complaints of speeding and particularly motor vehicles mixing with bicyclists, because Stoddard is the last street off State that next to Stop and Shop where bicyclists come off the bike path. It seems to have worked. It has, I think, based on what residents have told me, it has slowed traffic without any unintended consequences. I will say there were not the complaints or the incidents actually of parked vehicles being struck on Stoddard. So that was not an element in their request. But it does work for this street. And to answer Councilor Clemens' question. It was just one side has no parking for about half the street, and then it switches to the other side.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that. Okay, any other comments from anyone on the commission or clarifying questions? All right, Nancy, we'll go back to you. Go ahead, I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify a couple of things. The number of trucks on the street has decreased significantly, so thank you for doing that in the past. In terms of the development at 39 Day Avenue, there are 9 units, a current duplex in the front, and 7 additional units in the back. There are a total of 9 parking spaces. The average number of cars in situations like this is approximately 1.4 per household, which means that we're going to have additional cars parked on Day Avenue and less space for people to go around. No matter if you do the chicane solution or not, you're still going to have less space for people to wait behind parked cars while there's oncoming traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And that's one thing that we haven't specifically discussed on, but maybe have touched on as part of this conversation is the concept of courtesy one-way traffic, which can, again, act as its own sort of traffic calming mechanism where people are forced to slow because of the narrowness of the street. So I'll just throw that out there as well. So I think this has been a good discussion. It's always helpful for the commission to hear the experience of the residents from the street. And, you know, we appreciate your efforts around this. We also appreciate the chief's efforts on collecting very comprehensive data for us to help inform the discussion. So appreciate that. And if that would be helpful to the residents on the street, Nancy, please be in touch with us and let us know. And we're happy to send you whatever information might be helpful. Does anyone on the commission have any other comments on this or recommendations as we continue to look at this and try to come up with a solution to bring some relief to the residents?
Donna, Devin here.
Yeah, go ahead, Devin.
The resident study that I read today, how can that be posted so that others can read it?
I can arrange to have that put on the Transportation Parking Commission's website. It wouldn't be until next week, but I'd be happy to get that posted. And I can also, probably the easiest way would be to link it to this agenda and then post it on the website.
I think we should do that. Thank you.
Sure. Randy, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I asked a question. I'm just going to state an opinion. I think seriously considering the chicane or the alternate parking on different sides, I guess, solution is a reasonable one. As you said, the cars parking on the street, in terms of traffic calming, that's a feature, not a bug. And that helps if we can make the street a little bit more labyrinthial to maneuver. I think that might be a good next step to trying to slow and to make the traffic more reasonable through there.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. And if that were a direction we did decide to go, that would require some ordinance changes or modifications to the existing ordinance, parking ordinances. So we would have to come back to the commission to have a vote on that in order for that to move forward. So that's just something to mention for the residents on the call if we were to do something like that.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I appreciate all the residents bringing stuff through. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to Nancy and Erin and Katie for their comments. We appreciate it. Okay, thank you. We'll move on next to a proposed ordinance relative to an always stop control for State Street at Trumbull Road. And I just want to mention, thank you, Randy, for pointing this out. There was a mistake when we uploaded the agenda. And there was a mistake that the map for this item was not uploaded. So I'm just gonna ask Maggie if she'd be willing to share the correct map for us. So I'm just going to give a little background on this. So Mass DOT's Traffic and Safety Division identified communities across the state that were eligible to participate in a materials procurement program to convert two-way stop controlled intersections, which this intersection currently is, to an always stop control, so a four-way stop. Mass DOT reached out to us in December of 2024 with information on this program, which is a grant program, and we identified State Street as Trumbull Road as an eligible location for engineering review and evaluation. So as part of this program, DOT provides an engineering study and they provide all of the necessary materials to us for an always stop conversion if warranted. And these materials can include stop signs, the always stop plaques, stop ahead signs, and signposts. And then Northampton would be, or the municipality, the awarded municipality would be responsible for the installation. So Mass DOT hired Greenman Peterson, GPI. They actually do a lot of bridge work for us in the city. But Mass DOT hired them to collect data and conduct an evaluation of this intersection. And the evaluation found that this intersection is recommended for moving forward with a conversion to an always stop control. And recent crash statistics indicate 6 angle crashes that actually would have not happened theoretically between January 2019 to December 21. So what the engineering study identified is these 6 crashes may not have happened if there had been a four-way stop here instead of a two-way stop here. So this crash history actually does meet the warrant for a four-way stop. So there are currently stop signs on both approaches of Trumbull Road, and the proposed ordinance would convert the current two-way stop control at this intersection to an always stop control. So that's kind of the first part of the conversation. So what we have is a proposed ordinance to convert this to a four-way stop control. Mass DOT, as I mentioned, will supply the materials. They supplied the engineering study, which is actually quite valuable. When we pay for these engineering studies, they can be $10,000 or more. So this was a significant benefit to us. The second part of the conversation, so the first part of the conversation is a conversion to a four-way stop. The second part of this conversation is that Mass DOT has offered us flashing LED stop signs for this intersection. So what I wanted to have a discussion today about as well is if we decide to vote positively to convert this to a four-way intersection, do we feel that this is a good location for flashing LED stop signs? Because Mass DOT will provide those to us, and those are extremely valuable. They are in use in other places in the city, out on Route 66 at Glendale Road specifically. And we feel like they're working well and help the intersection to be more visible, although some people can feel like they're disruptive, or they can be particularly disruptive at nighttime for nearby residences. So that is this agenda item, and I just want to if you don't mind, Maggie, if you could just put that ordinance back up for me. And I will not read the ordinance, but the language in the ordinance is again a conversion from a two-way stop control to a four-way stop control. So I'm looking for a motion for a positive recommendation on this, if I could, or if not, we could have a discussion first, whatever is the commission's pleasure.
I make a motion for a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Councilor Clemmer. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, second from Randy. Okay, any discussion or question around the proposed ordinance? Nancy, go ahead.
Thank you. What impact is that going to have with vehicles stopping there and then speeding up to go on? where that Y is heading towards Prospect, which tends to be kind of a tricky intersection also.
I think that, you know, part of the analysis that GPI did was, you know, they always sort of look at, you know, the intersection itself, but they want to say like, okay, is this on a hill, or, you know, what's around it that's going to be a problem? They did not identify for us any factors kind of external to this that we needed to be concerned about. But I will say from my experience on this commission, you know, the entire State Street corridor is sort of a long-standing area of concern. And anything that we feel like can control traffic a little bit better through here is a good move. So I hear the question, but nothing has been identified for us as a particular concern.
Good.
Councilor Jarrett, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the stop signs, the stop sign control. I've just certainly personally over the years, anytime traveling on Trumbull Road, it can be very tricky to navigate getting out onto State Street. So it makes sense to me. The flashing lights would be a concern for me. Those would be something that's more appropriate in rural areas. The concern is specifically what you mentioned, that the impact it would have on the folks living right near there. And I don't know if those can be directed, like if they had some depth to them, so that you really only see them when you're coming onto them, and they don't cast light to the side and cause light trespass. But if they can, I wouldn't recommend them.
Yeah, and that's the concern. You know, they flash, and they're either, you know, we don't have a lot of options. It's a little bit of a tricky decision because, you know, we sort of have the opportunity to get this very valuable asset. It's just not necessarily the right, it may not be the right location for deployment, unfortunately. Councilor Clemmer, go ahead.
Yeah, just two quick questions. Could the lights be dimmed on the stop signs?
Not to my knowledge.
And then is that the kind of stop sign where you can hit the button and cross, or?
No, no. It's just a flashing stop sign, so it makes it sort of pop at you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Carolyn, go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll just start with the flashing piece first. Yeah, those would be very close to those residences. And although I think introducing something new on this, you know, corridor, it would get somebody's attention, but I do feel like the lights would be really disruptive to the residents. And then I also wanted to just check in about, I know that Bus and O'Neill did a corridor study at each of these intersections and made recommendations. I think about curb extensions here, but maybe I'm misremembering. And so I was just curious whether, I mean, I suppose this might negate any kind of need for those curb extensions if all traffic is coming to a stop. But just wondered about that. And then that sort of relates to, I think, I don't know if it was Deb or someone else who said, you know, what happens after this? Like, I assume we still have in the works improvements eventually that potentially could be made at the other intersections that were studied to sort of address that fact that, you know, if we want to slow down traffic through on the entire corridor, we'd want to still look at additional intersections beyond just.
Yeah, that study actually recommended curb extensions, I believe almost at every intersection. This would be more of a problem if we were to go with the LED stop signs, which obviously have like an infrastructure component to them that's difficult to move that a typical stop placard wouldn't. So if we were to go the way of LED stop signs and then want to come back and retrofit this, to have curb extensions, which, by the way, I think are still warranted in the corridor. Even if everyone's coming to a stop, it makes it safer for, pedestrian, and certainly encourages people to stop and not roll through the stop sign. So I think if we were to install LED stop signs, we would want to think carefully about putting in some sort of curb extension before we did that, versus if we just install sort of a static stop sign that, you just put it down, you take it up, it's not a big deal. But I think, I'm grateful to DOT for the engineering study on this, which has saved us a considerable amount of money, looking at this intersection, and I certainly support it. Nancy, go ahead.
Is this an all or nothing situation? Can two of the stop signs be LED for the more dangerous corridor or street, and the other two be just your traditional ones? And if we wanted to take all four of them, could two of them be held in reserve for maybe another identified?
No, so it's not all or nothing. I mean, we can specify the material that we want, but if we do specify that we want it, we do have to install it. So we can't, take it. We actually already thought of that. Like, can we take the signs and maybe, put them in other places in the city where we might need them? Because they're quite expensive. Not even talking about the maintenance, just sort of the initial capital cost. But that's not how the program works. So we would be obligated to install them, within a certain amount of time after they're given to us. Randy, go ahead.
If you were to put two flashing signs, it would be on the State Street stops, right? Probably not the Trumbull Street stops, because those are already there. I mean, and that gives us an estimate of what the speed up the hill would be. But those two, and State Street being, I don't have the data, I'm sure it's a very busy street. That might be of a valuable thing. On State Street, it certainly couldn't impact a couple of the residents there, but it would also, that might be maybe a slightly better compromise, I guess, than not using them at all, just because that is such a busy and fast street.
And yes, I agree with you. And what we did look at is just two flashing signs for the State Street, because as you said, drivers are accustomed to stopping on Trumbull, but not accustomed to stopping on State. If you look at that, the map on the screen, it's pretty obvious that that's gonna be pretty disruptive to those houses.
The houses on each opposite kitty corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to agree with Councilor Jarrett on that one, but felt that it was important to have a public conversation about it. So it's kind of a two-part conversation. Do we agree that the four-way stop is a good idea? And then what do we want to install here?
Donna, if you use the flashing, if you took the state's option on flashing signs, how long do you have to leave them in place before you could take them and put them back in stock?
The contract does not specify, but
it's kind of the flip of what you talked about for storing them and maybe not using them.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to be honorable in my dealings with Mass DOT. So, I think
you hear me gaming the system, don't you?
I think if we were to install them, that we wouldn't be capitulating on it.
Okay, my only thinking is this is to get the residents in town used to this being a stop sign is going to be, you're going to have a lot of fenders bent before that settles into everyone. So I see some value in it as a attention getter early on, and when people got used to it, then I could be very happy going back to other signs. That was what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I think the chief and I would have to have a conversation about implementation. This would be similar, but a little bit different than the Hatfield Cook Ave implementation, where it's a very busy corridor and people are sort of on autopilot through there. So we're gonna have to be very careful how this is implemented. I don't know that the state would look kindly on me returning used LED stop signs to them. Nancy, go ahead. Nancy, did you have a comment or was your?
Yes, thank you. If this has been identified as a dangerous intersection, would these stop signs be larger stop signs than, aren't the ones at Jackson and Prospect larger? I mean, those are great. That four-way turned into a great situation.
I actually don't know. I'd have to look at what DOT is specifying. I would assume whatever it is, you know, an MUTCD standard. So, I mean, if there is an MUTD standard that's larger size, you know, maybe we could work with the state on that. But I don't know. All right. Anyone else on the commission? Carolyn, go ahead.
I just thought this might be helpful. I wondered if I could share my screen. I put Street View up just to show how.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's do this.
Yeah, sorry. We'll just have to, sorry, Maggie, we'll have to take your screen down for a second.
Oh. Can you see that?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Is it showing the Google or no?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah, we can
Okay.
see. Yeah.
So that stop sign would be about right here, facing that way, and you can see all these windows here from this house. I think that would be a problem. And then if you go to the other corner, I mean, you're talking probably right here, I would think. So I think, and then of course the other side, there's already
Yeah, we would have to have signs on both sides, so there would be two signs on each side.
Yeah, yeah. So just wanted to put that out there because I think that I think, you know, the barrels that you put in for the other new four-way stops were helpful in alerting to people to the change traffic pattern.
Yeah, and we probably, you know, I think the police department was great in their efforts to bring awareness to this as well. You know, kind of having an officer in the area to just help people understand that it's a new traffic pattern. So, you know, I think we'd look to do some level of implementation like that as well. So, all right, Brett, you've been waiting patiently. I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Brett. Constantine Willow Street, member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Subcommittee. I strongly support changing to four-way, all-way stop control. I've seen some really dangerous behavior through this intersection, and I would really love to see it slowed down. And one way to slow it down is to stop it. Traffic. On the light, I'm pretty neutral. I mean, they certainly have some value, but most of the value would be at night. And I don't know what the traffic numbers are daytime to nighttime. I'm not downtown as much during the night. So maybe less value than we might even be thinking when we think of State Street as a busy daytime street. Thanks for listening. Check.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. All right, any other members of the public or members of the commission have any comments on this corridor or four-way stop? So we have a motion on the floor for a positive recommendation on conversion to a four-way stop, and I believe we agree that LED stop signs are not a good application in this location. I just want to mention that they are quite valuable. They are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to purchase. We get a lot of requests for them in a lot of locations around the city. And I don't want to say they're prohibitively expensive, but they're certainly expensive enough that we can't deploy them in as many places as we would like. So I just want to mention, this is an opportunity to receive something that is quite valuable, but we understand might be disruptive. So if we're in agreement, Nancy, go ahead.
Can they be installed? And then if we get backlash from the residents, then you may have to take them down. But I mean, we don't live there, so are we just making a decision not to have these valuable signs because we think that it's going to cause heartburn with the residents right there? And is that a good reason to turn away from these very valuable signs?
Excellent questions. Diana, go ahead.
I was just wondering if, because this is an issue and because of the finances involved, if would it make sense? Is there a deadline with the state? Maybe we could table this until the next meeting and just do some further research or maybe outreach to the residents about those signs so that we know, before we say no to something valuable, that we know that it's a real issue. Would that be a possibility? Because I know for me, I'm pretty sold on having this be a four-way stop. I think that's a really good safety improvement. And I know that, when people just blow past stop signs, there are a lot of problem intersections around town where people don't look at the stop signs. And so the signs can be valuable. So again, I kind of echo the comment of I'm concerned about preemptively turning it down without maybe having more to go on from the residents.
I think, also good points. One of the challenges that we have at DPW in making decisions around infrastructure that obviously impacts everybody is that we can't customize our infrastructure for the people who are living in a particular place at a particular time. We try to make the best decision we can for the city as a whole. And for the long-term sustainability of, the streetscape or the water system or the sewer system, because, whoever lives in that house on that corner, may leave or, something may happen with the property. So we do not customize installations based on what someone may want. With that said, we need to make good decisions for the corridor and for the present and future residents. So that's kind of the philosophy that we have always used and that the mayor's office uses. And I think that, department heads who have to make decisions like this use. Councilor Clemmer, go ahead.
I know the ones down here on 66, that's there aren't really many apartments, houses right where the stop sign is, but the other places that have these type of stop signs, are they near houses that, and have people complained about them?
I've received no complaints for the ones out on 66, and the ones we have in the city are out on 66. I have flashing curve signs. We have, flashing pedestrian beacons. We definitely get complaints about flashing lights, whatever they're flashing. We get complaints about, audible signals, sort of the chirping for the pedestrian signal to cross the street. So, for the people who are nearby to these things that flash or make noise or whatever, they're disruptive. And what we find is that everyone who's not nearby loves them and thinks they're great for visibility and, great if you're passing through. And I think that's the challenge. It's just like speed tables, people love them unless you live there.
So we don't have any other comparison really.
Yeah, I've got them out on 66. So
Okay,
they're
okay,
66 in
good.
Glendale, 66 in West Farm, 66 in Loudville. And there's just not the population density out there.
Okay, thanks.
Nancy, go ahead.
I think you made a good point that we can't make these decisions to who happens to be living there at that particular time. And I think that this is too valuable a thing that to enhance public safety to turn down. So I would urge us to accept that these be the LED flashing signs.
Thanks, Nancy. And just to follow up on Diana's comment, I am under something of a deadline from the state. They are awaiting the city's response and process on this. They just need to know that this is moving to city council. So that's the ordinance piece of this. You know, me ordering the equipment is sort of a separate conversation. And what I may be able to do is talk to officials at the state and see if, you know, I could have some time to, you know, maybe talk again with this commission next month and try to come to some sort of consensus around what we want to request as this ordinance, you know, gets referred to council and then goes to committee, because I think there's going to be, you know, I think we're not going to be referring this until the July meeting, which means council won't be voting it until August, right? Does that sound right, Councilors Jarrett and Clemmer, right? From a timing standpoint, this probably wouldn't be voted until August.
And there's
Correct.
only one meeting in each month also for us, so it sounds good. It sounds correct.
Okay, so I wouldn't even need to specify the equipment for a little bit of time, presumably as long as the state agrees with me. Councilor Jarrett, did you have a comment?
There are radar activated flashing stop signs that will only flash when someone is approaching and only in low light conditions. Could you check with the state and see if those are ones that they are offering, or if they are what they would think of those?
Yes, they did not send a spec sheet on which units they were sending, but they did send a disclaimer in their notice of award that said it is the municipality's responsibility to make sure that LED stop signs will be palatable or it would be appropriate for the installation. So it was sort of a warning from them to us, but I can get the specification on it.
And I would like to look at what the impacts have been in other communities in similar types of urban areas. And you know, how are there reports of they put them in, then there were many complaints and they had to take them out, or you know, what were the types of areas where they were acceptable, and what is the actual safety increase? What are the statistics on how much they will help in a low speed, relatively low speed environment? Like I've certainly seen them when I've been out on highways, and you see them from a mile away, and it's very helpful. But in this environment, but it's not generally a high speed environment, does that make how much does that improve safety?
Yeah, thank you. Those are good questions, and I can certainly put those to the state. Carolyn, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not, I think I don't want to lose sight of the fact that if we are thinking about making these curb extensions at some point, what would be the cost, you know, effect of having to move something if we do the curb extension? So just want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, excellent point. Go ahead, Diana.
I just wanted to make it clear, you know, in looking at the results of the state survey that they've done at their cost and you know, everything, one of the corners at the intersection looks like it's a business anyway, that if it comes down to, you know, turn down everything in favor of not putting the LED signs, that I would err on the side of increased safety in the roadway, that I think that's an important priority. So if there's a way that we can kind of, you know, go slow or split the baby in some way, that I think it would be worth looking into, but that would not prevent me from voting in favor of just approving recommendations, even with the LEDs, particularly because State Street, I know it's a road that I use. My old office was on that street, and I know that that's a lot of traffic that it gets. It's a straight shot. There's no kind of natural obstructions or curves that would slow down the traffic. And when you install a new stop sign in place, I know that can be a dangerous circumstance where cross traffic might be expecting State Street to stop, but drivers that normally traverse State Street are going to have an adjustment period of getting used to it. So I definitely do see that there's a safety justification for having LED stop signs, especially on the State Street portion of it. So, you know, while I do have the concerns, I don't think that that would prevent me from being able to, you know, agree with the project as a whole. So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, thanks, Diana. And I think I do need to ask the commission for a vote today on this because I am under time constraints from the state to commit to participating in the program, and to commit to implementing the four-way stop. The materials procurement is sort of a separate conversation. So, you know, I think if we agree that this conversion is a good idea, I would ask that we vote affirmatively for this, and I can commit that if possible, I can speak with the state and bring this back next month for further conversation about, are we getting an LED stop sign or are we not getting an LED stop sign? If I don't have that much time, Councillor Jarrett, what I can commit to doing is having a conversation with you about the best way to proceed and engage in Councillor Dubs. This is his ward, if we do need to make a more urgent decision. So that's kind of what my timing is based on the program. Even if we don't get the LED stop signs, the value of the post and the signs and the placards and the stop ahead and new pattern ahead signs is quite valuable. Even the non-LED signs, street signs are not inexpensive. So this is, a valuable program through the state, and even just the regular placards, represent a considerable savings to the city. So I think, overall it's a win-win for us. It's just a question of, do we want an LED or do we not? So I hope that's helpful information. So that's what I can commit to, and I hope that you'll agree that we can vote this today. Sort of with the caveat that there may be further discussion on the LEDs. I don't know if Councillor Jarrett, I kind of put you on the spot. I don't know if that sounds reasonable to you.
I'm happy to have a conversation, but I do think we should think carefully and talk with counselors, because we could end up in a situation where we've ordered the flashing LEDs, and then the council, which just has to vote up or down, says no because there's so much pushback about the flashing LEDs. So we need to do that work ahead of time around the to make sure that this will work.
Right.
If we're going for flashing.
Yeah, and maybe, the safest thing for us to do is to just vote this positively, and I tell the state, just send me regular stop signs. It's sort of unfortunate that we couldn't take advantage of this because we feel like it might be problematic, and that may be the safest path forward, with the biggest benefit for everybody. And unfortunately, those are the types of decisions we have to make a lot. So,
Are you ready for a motion?
the motion's on the floor and we have a second, so it's been quite a discussion, and I appreciate everyone's opinions, but I'm already late on what I need to report back to the state. So I think we just need to kind of take a vote on this, and I'll do the best I can to communicate out to everyone. So, motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Beth, please call the roll.
Anna,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Debin,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
That's a unanimous 10 yeses.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, and good discussion. And I will be following up on this as soon as I can. Okay, next is a proposed ordinance relative to parking on Bedford Terrace. So we are planning the reconstruction of the concrete sidewalks on both sides of Bedford Terrace as part of preparing the construction documents. We take a look at all existing ordinances, and sometimes we need to make adjustments based on what's in the code and what's actually reflected in the street. So there's kind of a lot going on here. Maggie, would you mind just I won't read the ordinance, but just put up the map, and I'm gonna just kind of give the executive summary, because again, there's a lot going on this map. What we're trying to do is we are just trying to make field conditions match what's in the code. So we are taking the opportunity of sidewalk reconstruction to just make an alteration to the code. So right now, the current code has the following that will remain unchanged. So there is currently no parking between 12:01 a.m. to 6 a.m. on all of State Street to Elm Street on the west side, and that is shown as a blue line on the map. And so that's not going to change. There's also metered parking from State Street to Elm Street on the north side, and that is shown as a pink line on the map. And that is also not going to change. So what is going to change, the proposed ordinance is going to amend the existing no parking zones to reflect actual conditions on the street. So by Elm Street, there's a no parking zone in the ordinance, but there's actually existing metered spaces. We're going to be closing the curb cut and adding an additional meter. And Nancy, feel free to jump in here because I hope I'm giving a good explanation. But again, this is just kind of cleaning up language in the ordinance that just does not match what's on the street. So again, there are existing metered spaces by Elm Street that are showing as a no parking zone in the ordinance. So that's obviously a problem for enforcement. And then by State Street, the extent of the no parking zone is going to be reduced from 145 feet to 29 feet, as again, there are existing metered spaces kind of in the middle of that written no parking zone. So that's what this ordinance seeks to do, is to just take the conditions that are in the field and make them actually real in the ordinance. So I don't know if there's any discussion on that or questions, or Nancy, if I've done a good enough job explaining that, but I tried. Okay, Councilor Jarrett, go ahead.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I'm glad you're going to be closing a curb cut and adding another parking space. My question had to do with State Street at Bedford Terrace. That intersection could certainly use some narrowing. And is there any provision, the possibility of doing that while you're doing the work on the sidewalks? And will that affect any parking if that would be the case?
Yes, I thought you might ask that. And yes, part of the sidewalk project is actually to shrink that entire intersection. We're actually going to put some pretty aggressive curb extensions in there. And we are bidding that as an alternate in the project because we're unsure what the value of that is going to be. So I have to make sure I have sufficient funding. But that has been designed to be a substantially tighter turn. In terms of disruption to parking, it won't alter this ordinance, but in terms of disruption to parking while this work is going on, it's going to be quite disruptive. The project will be quite disruptive to parking. And people are just going to have to be patient while we get through it. But there will be a variety of parking restrictions that are in place while those sidewalks are being worked on.
Understood. Thanks.
All right. Any other conversation about the proposed ordinance? is there a motion for a positive recommendation?
Make a motion for a positive recommendation.
Second.
All right, that's Counselor Clemmer with the motion, and I believe Randy was the second.
Sure.
Okay, Randy was the second. Sorry, Nancy. Okay. Any further discussion on this ordinance change? Okay, Beth, if you could please call the roll.
Beth,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
That would be unanimous with 10 yeses again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is a discussion of a traffic calming request for Massasoit Street. So this was submitted to us December 20th, 2023, as we work through our backlog. Resident states that Massasoit Street has seen a large increase in vehicle traffic from presumably the use of the YMCA and other cut-through traffic from Prospect to Elm Street. Vehicles driving at high speeds. The street and its adjacent roads have a large number of children. So I'll ask the chief if he would share with us what he's got for data on this.
Thanks, Donna. A 5-year collision analysis was conducted in 2024. There was 4 collisions reported between February 2019 and February 2024. By the intersection of 5th Avenue, a vehicle was pulling out of a driveway and was struck by another vehicle. Another one, a garbage truck pulling away from a curb, and the arm of the truck struck a parked vehicle. A vehicle struck the mirror of a parked vehicle as it drove by, and a vehicle was attempting to back out into the roadway and struck a parked vehicle. As far as the speed data, covert speed data was collected from August 31st, 2024 to September 12th, 2024 in the area of 86 Massasoit. During this time, the speeds of 5,549 vehicles were measured. The posted speed is 30 miles per hour. Average speed was 25, and the 85th percentile speed was 30.3. The 85th percentile speed is widely used traffic statistical measure of the speed at or below which 85% of the drivers travel on that portion of the road segment.
Thanks, Chief. I have a couple of other comments for us. Massasoit, it's approximately 2,200 feet long. It is 25 feet wide. There is a sidewalk on the east side for the entire length and on a portion of the west side between Prospect and 5th Avenue. There are a couple of different parking prohibitions, and the official speed regulation is 30 miles an hour. So I don't know if anyone on the commission has any comments for us on Massasoit Street. There are any members of the public here who wish to speak about Massasoit Street. Okay, no one from the public and no one from the commission. Okay, Councilor Jarrett, go ahead.
I'll talk. Yeah, when I see these, you often see this where it's the 85th percentile is right at the speed limit and means 1 out of 7 people are speeding. I appreciated in the previous with Day Avenue where the chief talked about exactly where the breakdown was. So we knew how many were speeding a lot versus just a little. And then I also think about, this has a posted speed regulation, but really this is a quiet street. It should be a 25 mile an hour speed, and in which case it would be considered speeding would be much more would be considered speeding. So those are just my thoughts on it. That I would love to see some way to slow down traffic on this street and of course many others, and we have to do priority of what available funds we have.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I don't know. So I was going to say, I think there are probably some maybe different sections of the street that might be a greater concern than other sections. I think the corner of the Y, it's my experience that people tend to come around that corner quickly and try to pick up speed as they're heading sort of towards Elm Street. But I imagine, and that could be the case on the other end. However, I think there's more on-street parking on both sides, closer to the intersection on the other end. Not entirely sure, but I think just the fact that that building, the YMCA, is further set back, makes it feel like it's open and easier sort of sight lines for people to pick up speed on that end. But again, like the other, I guess, Day Avenue, I think the fact that there is on-street parking along the street and it does switch side to side, that helps sort of in the middle portion of the street.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Go ahead, Randy.
I'm wondering also if this is part of the fallout from the high school. You know, it's only a block away from what we spent a lot of time talking about already. So I'm curious about that. I heard about the parking is on either side of the street and alternates, or is there some of that chicaning magic that we can think about for a street like this, which I think, you know, lowering the speed of the vehicles is a, you know, helpful thing to do. I'm not other, you know, I totally agree with the disruption of big speed bumps and how those can become annoying pretty quickly. So I'm wondering if there is a possibility to do something with the parking on this road on this street to slow things down a little bit, put a little jog in it or something.
Yeah, the parking prohibitions right now are both on the west side, so on either end. So from Prospect Street, about 600 feet, and then from Elm Street, about 170 feet. So they're both on the west side. So it's certainly, you know, something we could look at. I don't believe there's a parking regulation on the rest of the street, so it would call for, you know, the imposition of parking regulations, which is something that would need to be discussed here.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'd certainly be willing to consider that. Again, cars on the road, parked on the road, are a great way to slow traffic. If that's the concern there. So, and
yep, and at 25 feet wide, this would be a good candidate for that sort of courtesy one way, you know, chicane phenomenon. Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay, anyone from the public? All right, seeing and hearing none, we will conclude our conversation. Oh, Councilor Jarrett, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to speak to something in new business, a suggestion for the future.
Oh, sure. Okay, that was my next agenda item, new business, Councilor.
Sure, yeah. My suggestion, and we've kind of discussed things like this, Donna, would be a brainstorm session of general topics that the commission could discuss in the future. A topic of not about, say, a specific street, but about, okay, let's talk more about speed humps, or let's talk more about different types of deflection, or yeah, various ideas. And so to have a session where we could brainstorm, and then you could consider having those in the future, those discussions.
Hey, thank you, Councilor. I completely agree with you, and I would like to actually put that on the next agenda. I've been in touch with Randy too, who had a comment along those lines as well. So I think that I would like to, if we don't have something time sensitive that, you know, requires council action, or, you know, we're not jammed up next month, I would actually like to put that on the agenda for next month. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other new business? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
That's Councilor Clemmer.
Devin seconds.
Second from Devin. Okay, any discussion? Okay, Beth, call the roll for us, please.
Donna,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Debin,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
That would be again unanimous 10
Okay.
is yes.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month. Take care.
Thank you.
Aye.